There is a photograph from the Sterling Center dedication ceremony that most people never noticed. Not the official photograph, not the one that ran on the front page of the Seattle Times the following morning. The other photograph, the one from the security camera in the upper left corner of the lobby, timestamp 14/20, I trees, set. In that photograph, in the background, barely in frame, a man in a maintenance uniforme is standing with his hand on the handle of a cleaning cart. He is not looking at the podium. He is looking at the child, standing next to Meredith Sterling. He has been looking at her for 6 years. The Sterling Center for Oncology cost $112 million and 4 years to build. Meredith Sterling was 38 years old on the day it opened, the youngest chief medical officer in the hospital's 90-year history. She stood at the podium with the specific posture of someone who has been photographed in important rooms often enough that the posture is no longer performed. It is simply how she stands now. Beside her, slightly behind, holding the edge of her jacket with 2 small hands, Maya, 6 years old, dark eyes, a dress the color of the sky. On the kind of Seattle morning, when the clouds break briefly and you remember there is weather above them, Maya Sterling had been born with a heart that did not work the way hearts are supposed to work. She had been managing this fact for 6 years, with the pragmatic acceptance of a child who has never known any other version of herself. The man with the cleaning cart was named Elias Oze. His employee badge said 4,471. His shift was 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Tuesday through Saturday. He had been employed in the maintenance division of Seattle General Hospital for 6 years, 2 months, and 14 days. No one who worked in that building had ever looked directly at him. This was not cruelty. It was the specific invisibility that attaches itself to people in certain uniforms, in certain roles, moving through certain spaces. He had understood this before he applied for the position. He had accepted the condition. He had shown up every day and done the work and watched the child from a distance. The moment happened at 2:31 p.m. Maya Sterling crossed 40 feet of marble floor in the specific running style of a 6-year-old who is somewhere to be, arms slightly out for balance, shoes making the sound that children's shoes make on polished surfaces, the sound that turns every adult head in a room because it is the sound of someone small, moving with great purpose. She reached the man with the cleaning cart. She put her arms around him. She said, into his uniform jacket, in a voice that was not quite crying, but was the voice adjacent to crying, "Dr. Elias, why are you hiding here? You said you wouldn't leave me." The lobby of the Sterling Center for Oncology held 243 people. At 2:31 p.m. on that Tuesday, none of them moved. Meredith Sterling stood at the podium. She was looking at her daughter. She was looking at the man her daughter had her arms around. Elias did not pull away. He crouched down, slowly, to the height of the child. He looked at her. He said, quietly enough that only Maya heard, "I'm not hiding. Maya, I've been right here." She looked at him. "You promised," she said. "I know," he said. Then he stood. He looked at Meredith Sterling, who had come down from the podium and was crossing the lobby floor toward them. She stopped 3 feet from him. She looked at him. He looked at her. Neither of them said anything. 243 people waited to find out what happened next. And 6 years earlier, the name Elias Oze appeared on a list that the hospital's communications department had been asked to prepare for the board of directors. The list was titled, Personnel Associated with Incident 2018-C. There were 4 names on it. Elias's name was first. The incident involved a cardiac monitoring device, manufactured by Sterling MedTech, a subsidiary of the family trust that had founded the hospital. The device had reported incorrect pressure readings during a post-operative procedure. The patient had survived. The patient had also sustained a complication that would require ongoing management for the rest of their life. The device was quietly discontinued. What the board needed was not an investigation. What the board needed was a name. Elias's name was first on the list because Elias was the attending surgeon of record for that procedure. Not because he had made the decision that led to the complication, but because his name was on the paperwork, and the paperwork was what the board had access to. He knew this. He had a lawyer for 11 days. The license revocation was processed on a Thursday morning in March. Elias sat in the hospital administrator's office and watched a man he had worked alongside for 11 years read from a document that had been prepared by someone neither of them had ever met. When it was over, the administrator looked up. He said, "I'm sorry, Elias. Elias looked at him. I know, he said. He meant it. The man was sorry. That was a true thing. It was simply not a useful thing. He cleared his office in 2 hours. He carried both boxes to his car. He drove home. He did not sleep. At 11:47 that night, in a room on the 3rd floor of the same hospital he had left. 14 hours earlier, a woman named Emily Chen went into labor 6 weeks early. Elias was not supposed to be there. He had driven past the hospital, on his way to somewhere else, somewhere he no longer remembers, and had stopped, for a reason he has never been able to explain with any precision to anyone who has asked. He went in through the emergency entrance. The nurse on duty looked up, looked at Elias, looked at the situation, and made the practical decision of a person who understands that credentials matter less than competence. At 11:47 p.m., when a woman is in labor and the attending is 2 floors away. Wash your hands, she said. He washed his hands. The child arrived at 11:47 p.m. She cried immediately, not the tentative, exploring cry of a child testing a new environment, the full, committed cry of a child who has something to say and is saying it. Elias held her for a moment before handing her to the nurse. He noted, in the automatic way he noted things, the irregular rhythm in the small chest, the thing that was there, before it would be named, before it would be measured, before it would be managed. Emily Chen looked at him from the bed. What's her name? Elias said. Maya, Emily said. Her name is Maya. Then, what's yours? He told her. He did not know, standing in that room at midnight, that the child's last name was Sterling. He left at 12:40 a.m. He did not leave his name at the desk. 3 months later, he applied for a position in the maintenance division of Seattle General Hospital. In the 6th week, pushing his cart past the pediatric wing, he looked through the window of room 312 and saw a child of approximately 3 months, in hospital crib, wires on her chest, a monitor beside her, showing the rhythm he had noted at midnight 3 months earlier. Now named, now documented, now a subject of careful attention. He stopped. He looked at her for a long time. He recognized her, not from her face, but from the monitor reading, from the specific, irregular pattern that he had catalogued. In the 40 minutes he had spent with her, in the room where she arrived. He knew that pattern. He had been thinking about it since midnight on the night he had first heard it. On a Thursday night in April, 3 months after the night of the delivery, he opened the records room, and opened the file, and sat at the table, and read everything that had been documented about Maya Sterling's heart since the morning after she was born. Then he made notes. He left at 4:15 a.m. He came back the following Thursday, and the Thursday after that, on the night that Maya collapsed, in the lobby of the Sterling Center. 6 years and 2 months after that first Thursday, the file contained 743 pages of documented medical history. Of those 743 pages, approximately 400 were in the handwriting of various physicians who had cared for Maya over the course of her life. The remaining 343 pages were in a handwriting that belonged to none of them. No name, no date, no institutional affiliation, just notes. Dr. Ekene Adeyemi pulled the file at 3:02 p.m. and understood, within 4 minutes, that this case was beyond what his training had prepared him for. He needed someone who had studied this specific heart. He went to find Meredith Sterling, Meredith Sterling had been in 3 rooms. In the 40 minutes since her daughter collapsed, the lobby, the corridor outside the emergency wing, the family consultation room, she found him in the sub-basement. He was restocking a supply cart at the end of a hallway that smelled of industrial cleaning solution. She said his name, not with authority, the way you say a name when you are not sure you have the right to say it anymore. He heard her. He did not turn around immediately. He placed the item he was holding on the cart. He straightened. He turned. He looked at her. 6 years. He said nothing. He waited. She said, Maya is an emergency. Her heart. She stopped. She said, she needs surgery. Eken says it is beyond what anyone on staff currently has the knowledge to manage. Elias looked at her. He said, who has the knowledge to manage it? Not a question. She held his gaze. You, she said. The word was very small in that hallway. She went down on one knee. She had not planned to. It was not a gesture, or it was a gesture, but not a performed one, the way that things become gestures when the body does them, before the mind has decided to. Please, she said. Elias looked at her for a long moment. Then he looked at his hands. 6 years. 6 years of cleaning products and floor polishers. and the physical labor of maintaining spaces that other people occupied. He did not know whether the hands that had spent 6 years doing that work were still the hands that could do the other work. He looked at them the way you look at something you have been counting on from a distance, and are now required to assess up close. The steadiness, he could not assess the steadiness by looking. He would not know until he was in the room. He looked up from his hands. He removed his work gloves. He placed them on the cart. He removed his maintenance jacket. He folded it. He placed it on top of the gloves. He started walking past her, down the corridor, toward the elevator. She stood. She followed. He did not tell her not to follow. He did not speak at all. Eken was waiting outside the emergency suite. He looked at Elias. Elias looked at him. Eken said, "I'll scrub in with you." Elias said, "Fine." That was the full conversation. In the records room on the 6th floor, the file was retrieved and placed on the small table outside the scrub room. Elias was already scrubbing. He did not need the file. He had read it 743 pages at a time over the course of 6 years. He knew it, the way he knew things, that he had returned to often enough, that they had stopped being information, and had become, simply, what he knew. Eken picked up the file while Elias was scrubbing. He opened it. He looked at the first page. The second. He turned to the middle section, the section where the documented history gave way to something else, pages that did not have headers, or date stamps, or the institutional formatting of hospital records, just notes. In a hand he did not recognize. He looked at the notes for a long time, then he looked at Elias through the scrub room window. Elias was looking at his hands, under the running water, the particular focused attention of a person who is checking something important and private, and has no time to be uncertain about the result. Eken closed the file. He said nothing. Meredith stood in the corridor, outside the operating suite. The door was closed. The light above it was red. She stood with her back against the wall, and her hands at her sides, and she looked at the red light, the way you look at something you cannot change, and have decided not to look away from. 4 hours and 17 minutes later, the light above the door changed. The door opened. Elias came out first. He was removing his gloves. He pulled the mask down from his face. He looked at Meredith. He said 3 words. "She is stable." Then he walked past her, down the corridor, toward the scrub room. He did not look back. And the records room on the 6th floor was not a room that Meredith Sterling had ever had reason to visit. She went at 3:47 a.m. The file was on the table. Eken had left it there. She sat down. She opened it. The notes were dense, not in the way that documents produced by institutions are dense, but the way that a person is dense with a thing they have been thinking about for a very long time. She could not understand most of the clinical content. She understood the dates. The first entry was dated January 14th, 6 years ago, 3 weeks after the license revocation. She looked at that date for a long time. 3 weeks after. He had come here, 3 weeks after they had taken everything from him. Not for revenge, not to document what had been done to him, to look at the file of the child he had delivered. At midnight, on the night they took everything, she found the entries from the first year, the careful, exploratory quality of someone learning a new terrain. She found the entries from the 3rd year, the confidence of someone who has been living with a problem long enough to feel the contours of it in the dark. She found the entries from the 5th year, tighter, more specific, the notes of someone who had stopped exploring and started solving. She stayed in the records room until 5:30 a.m. At some point, she stopped reading and simply sat, with the file open on the table, and looked at the handwriting that covered 343 pages. It was not the handwriting of a man who was waiting for his moment. It was the handwriting of a man who could not stop thinking about a child's heart. She thought about the word she had used 6 years ago in a conversation she had never spoken aloud, but had conducted internally many times. The word had been collateral. She had been good at that word. She was less good at it now. Maya woke at 6:14. Meredith was in the chair, beside the bed when it happened. Maya's eyes opened. She looked at the ceiling, then at the monitor, then at her mother. She said, "Where is Dr. Elias?" Meredith looked at her daughter. "He was here. He's the reason you're okay." Maya considered this. "I knew he would be." Maya said, "You knew. He promised he wouldn't leave." "When did he tell you that?" Maya was quiet for a moment. "He didn't say it with words," she said. "He said it with the way. He was always there." Eken came to check on Maya at 7 a.m. At the door, on his way out, he paused. He said to Meredith, "The file, the notes," she said. "I saw them." He nodded. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "He saved your daughter. With hands he wasn't supposed to use anymore, in a room he wasn't supposed to be in. I just wanted to say that I saw it. I was there. I saw exactly what he did, and exactly what it required." He left. Elias left the hospital at 7:22, not through the main entrance. He was carrying a canvas bag that held approximately the same amount as he had brought in on his first day. He stopped at the bottom of the loading dock steps and looked up at the building. Not at any particular window, not at any particular floor. At the building. He had come here because he could not leave the child he had helped bring into the world. The child was alive. The child would continue to be alive, with the management her heart required, with the knowledge that now existed in the file on the 6th floor. Knowledge that had not existed when he started, and that would not disappear when he left. He had done what he came here to do. Not because someone had told him so, not because justice had been served. What had happened tonight was a child whose heart had needed someone who understood it. That was the whole of it. He turned. He walked to the end of the alley. He turned onto the street. He did not look back. There are people who stay in places that have taken things from them, not because they have nowhere else to go, not because they are waiting for an accounting, because there is something there that requires their presence, something they cannot hand off, or resolve, or finish from a distance. Elias Osei stayed in a building that had taken his license, his reputation, his standing, his future as he had understood it, because a child had been born in that building on the worst night of his life, with a heart that was going to need someone who understood it, and he was the person who understood it, and he could not make himself be elsewhere. Is there something you could not stop knowing, something you kept coming back to, even when every practical reason said to leave it behind? I want to know. I'll see you next week.